Man, whatever that is happening between ANC and Jacob Zuma. A couple of days ago, I watched a report online, and this report came from KZN, and the Provincial Secretary General of the ANC, Bekim Tolo, said the African National Congress is going to deal harshly with the members of the ANC who are supporting MK. The ANC is going to discipline the members of the ANC that are supporting MK. So the ANC is not going to do anything about Jacob Zuma. The same person who is decampaigning the party, the same person who is influential going around telling South Africans not to vote for the ANC, not to vote for this ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa. They are not going to do anything about that, but they are going to do something about the average ANC members who are supporting MK. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, and it sounds like the ANC and Jacob Zuma, they will go into coalition after the elections. You remember the ANC chair, Gwedemantashe, went to 702 recently and said the ANC will deal with Jacob Zuma after the elections. They are only going to deal with Jacob Zuma after the elections. It means what? They are going to deal with Jacob Zuma after Jacob Zuma has donated the MK votes to the African National Congress. I mean, it makes no sense. How can the African National Congress allow Jacob Zuma to go around with Mkondo Wesizwe? How can the African National Congress allow Jacob Zuma to still be the member of the party while advocating for a separate party? Guys, the ANC executives understand that the party is dying. Jacob Zuma understands that the party is dying. Jacob Zuma has been the member of the African National Congress all his life. There is no way he is going to turn his back against the African National Congress today. There is no way that he's going to do that. So these people, man, they understand that, man, we cannot afford to go into coalition with the DA. We cannot afford to go into coalition with the EFF. If these people, man, get here, they are going to discover so much. We cannot allow that. So we are going to talk with you, Jacob Zuma. We are going to cut a deal. Ramaphosa is going to pardon you, and you are going to campaign for this new political party that is going to be called the MK. Like this political party, they are calling it with the name of ANC Military Wing. And again, the ANC is doing nothing about it. The ANC is doing nothing about it. So is it really far-fetched to say these people are going to work with each other after the elections? It is really far-fetched. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now, even Isma Khashule has went to join Jacob Zuma with the MK. Isma Khashule went to join Jacob Zuma with the MK. The comrades are realigning back to the African National Congress. MK, it has a lot of supporters because of Jacob Zuma has a lot of supporters. African Congress for Transformation has a lot of supporters in the Free State because Isma Khashule has a lot of supporters. These people, men, have decided to work together. These people have decided to work together. If ANC calls these people to go into coalition with them, people understand that the talk of coalition will just be a talk, but technically the African National Congress will still be running everything. So this is how it's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen, man. And I'm going to laugh. I'm going to laugh at these people, man, who are following Jacob Zuma, thinking that just because Ramaphosa is a terrible president, Jacob Zuma was the best president ever. I'm going to laugh at these people because they are failing to see that the African National Congressmen will do everything. This is the most desperate campaign of the ANC. They will do everything. The African National Congress is going to put out all the stops, and this is one of those stops. This is one of those steps for the fact that many people within the ANC, they were expelled for far less. Jacob Zuma, what he's doing now to the African National Congress, I mean, right now, Bekim Tolo is talking about we are going to punish the people, man, who are supporting MK. The people, man, who are simply saying, yeah, man, maybe Jacob Zuma, what he's doing is right. The ANC wants to punish those people. The ANC wants to drag those people in front of the disciplinary committee, but they won't do anything about Jacob Zuma. They won't do anything about Jacob Zuma.
12 after 7, good morning. Over the last few days, leaders of the ANC have criticised, and I suppose in some cases perhaps insulted, the party's former leader, the party's former president, Jacob Zuma. Yesterday, the ANC's KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Secretary, Bheki Mtolo, told you he believed Zuma had expelled himself from the ANC through his decision to campaign for the new political party, Mkhonto weSizwe.
I mean, you cannot expel yourself from the party. You cannot expel yourself from the party. The ANC, they're just coming with the terms just to push time until the elections. The ANC, they're just coming with the terms. If Jacob Zuma has already expelled himself as the member of the African National Congress, why is the ANC not formalizing it? Why is the party not formalizing it? If the man has already decided that I no longer want to be the part of the African National Congress, why is the ANC not formalizing it? They are not formalizing it because it is not their intention to get rid of Jacob Zuma. It is not the intention to get rid of Jacob Zuma. It is not Jacob Zuma's intention to leave the African National Congress. So Jacob Zuma is going to do whatever necessary to help the African National Congress, and he will go to Nkandla. Many people will be frustrated. Many people will insult Jacob Zuma. They will call Jacob Zuma with all the names, but he will take the MK votes and put them into ANC basket and go back home to Nkandla. That is how it's going to happen after these elections.
Over the weekend, the Water Affairs Minister, Senzo Mchunu, said Zuma was motivated only by his hatred of President Cyril Ramaphosa. There's been a variety of other comments. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think you will know some of what ANC leaders have said about Zuma's decision to do this. Well, a spokesperson for the new political party, currently known as Umkhonto weSizwe, is Nhlamulo Ntlela. Nhlamulo, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners.
Is President Zuma motivated only by his hatred of President Ramaphosa? Is that why the MK party exists, to fight Ramaphosa?
President Zuma is motivated by his love for the people and his love for what used to be an ANC of President Nelson Mandela, President O.R. Tambo, which is not the ANC of today. The ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa does not care for the people. And it is very clear with the current state of the lives of people in this country and the economy as it states.
Is President Zuma still a member of the ANC, or has he left the ANC?
I mean, before
President Zuma stated.
I mean, before he continues, he says that the ANC of Ramaphosa hates the people of this country. The ANC of Ramaphosa does not love South Africa. I mean, how did the ANC of Jacob Zuma love South Africa? Are you telling me that Jacob Zuma appointing the cadres, the incompetent cadres, to be the members of to be the ministers? Are you telling me that that is the way Jacob Zuma was showing love to the people of this country? Are you telling me that incompetent cabinet of Jacob Zuma, incompetent and bloated cabinet of Jacob Zuma, is that a way of Jacob Zuma showing the love to the people of this country? Are you telling me Jacob Zuma running the country with his group of friends was his way of showing the people of this country that he has love for them? So why are people keep saying that the ANC of Ramaphosa hates people, the ANC of Jacob Zuma hated South Africans? Man, African National Congress hates the people of this country. The African National Congress hates the people of this country. And it is only people who are obsessed with identity politics who will see things this way. It's only people, man, who are obsessed with identity politics who will say Jacob Zuma was a better president, Ramaphosa was a better president. These are the same people, man, who will always have a reason to vote for the African National Congress because the ANC has a different president. If the ANC gets rid of Ramaphosa right now and ANC maybe elects Lamola to be the president of the country, there are people who are going to say, yeah, I know I used to hate Ramaphosa because Ramaphosa is incompetent, but because now they have Ronald Lamola, I'm going to vote for the African National Congress again. And guess what? Ronald Lamola is going to do the same thing that Jacob Zuma did, that Cyril Ramaphosa did. The ANC as an organization, it hates the people of this country. That's what people don't understand. The ANC hates the people of this country. The ANC works for no one. The ANC hates black people. The ANC hates colored. The ANC hates the Muslims. And the ANC hates white people. The ANC only serves the African National Congress. They don't serve the people of this country. You can't tell me that Jacob Zuma loved the people of this country when he gave us the worst ministers that we have ever saw. Jacob Zuma gave us the most terrible ministers under his administration. You can't tell us that is a way of him showing the people of this country that he loves South Africa. And by the way, the decline of this country started with Jacob Zuma's presidency. It started with Jacob Zuma's presidency. Most of the problems that Ramaphosa has been blamed for today started with Jacob Zuma's presidency. Most of the things that Ramaphosa has been blamed about, they started with Jacob Zuma. So this idea that just because Ramaphosa is a terrible president, now Jacob Zuma is the best thing to ever... No, Jacob Zuma, like the decline of this country started with Jacob Zuma. The records are there. The decline of South Africa started with Jacob Zuma. So how did Jacob Zuma love South Africa? How did Jacob Zuma love South Africa? Why did Jacob Zuma allow the Grootes to capture him? You know, every time the ANC and the MK, they talk about how the white people captured Cyril Ramaphosa. They say nothing about the fact that the Grootes literally captured Jacob Zuma. They captured Jacob Zuma, and Jacob Zuma was not even shy to admit that, man, these people, man, have captured me. He was not shy. Even his the likes of Andile Mqitama, even his son, Duduzane Zuma, he used to be proud going on national television. I'm working with the Guptas. I'm not going to hide anything. I'm working with the Guptas. Today, the same Duduzane Zuma goes around. He has his own political party. He goes around telling South Africans that, guys, you can trust me. You can trust me. Please forget about the fact that I used to brag about working with the criminals while my father was the president. Forget about the fact that I worked with the criminals. I benefited from working with the criminals when my father was a president. Forget about all of that. I want to be the president of the country today. Please pick me. Please pick me. This is what Jacob Zuma's son is doing. This is what Jacob Zuma's son is doing. So how can you sit here and tell us that Jacob Zuma loved this country?
So clearly, Stephen, at the announcement on the 16th of December 2023, that he's a member of the ANC, he'll die a member of the ANC. And I think what's important, maybe just to give some clarity here, because I think maybe this is what's causing confusion. In 1960, when the ANC was disbanded by the apartheid government, because of the fact that it was straitjacketed and could not liberate the people, President Mandela and other comrades in that case had to find another way. And in this case, Umkhonto weSizwe, which was the paramilitary wing of the ANC, was formed. And that was to take back the country by the bullet. Today, and by the way, you must also remember that President Zuma was the members of the Umkhonto weSizwe at that point in 1961 when Umkhonto weSizwe was formed were members of the ANC, and they swore an oath because they were patriotic citizens to fight back the apartheid government and win it by the bullet. Today, we're saying Umkhonto weSizwe as a party, not a paramilitary wing, as a party, is the only solution in this case to fight back this country, to fight back for this country. And again,
so the same Jacob Zuma who has started the decline of South Africa is the same Jacob Zuma who's going to fix everything right now. The same Jacob Zuma who has started the decline of this country is the same Jacob Zuma that is going to help this country today. Man, political parties like MK, man, they are relying on people, man, who cannot even use their minds. They are relying on people who are gullible, man, people who are easily fooled and easily manipulated. They are relying on those people.
Against a white-controlled ANC that is no longer ANC. And we're going to do that by the way of the ballot, not the bullet.
Okay, let me put this question to you in a slightly different way. Do you trust Zuma? He still belongs to the ANC. If he's betrayed the ANC to join MK, and he's still a member of the ANC, what stops him from one day betraying MK and going back to the ANC?
President Zuma has never betrayed the people. That's why you're getting such a...
It is not about Jacob Zuma betraying the people. The question is, if Jacob Zuma betrayed the African National Congress for MK and still being the member of the African National Congress, what makes you think that Jacob Zuma is not going to do the same thing with MK? It has nothing to do with the people. Stop saying Jacob Zuma has never betrayed the people. Right now we are talking about the African National Congress. It is not the people. It is the organization. African National Congress, MK. This is what the question is about, not the people.
Resounding response by virtue of him campaigning for Umkhonto weSizwe. So people trust President Zuma. And President Zuma stated many times that people think they know him, whether it be the media, whether it be private sector. They don't know him. The people that know him are the people on the ground. And he has stated that clearly, and it's a fact. That's why you're seeing such a resounding response to him giving people hope and saying that he's going to campaign for Umkhonto weSizwe.
If people know him and if people love him, why were there protests against him and his government when he was the president? If what you say is true, why did surveys during the time show that his approval rating fell below 20% towards the end of his presidency? You say that people love him, but there seems to be very little proof of that at the moment.
No, I don't think there's little proof of that. I think that is not true, Stephen. Let's go back to what you're referring to. At the time when I think you're referring to the Zuma Must Fall campaign, that was a white monopoly capital driven through white-owned media campaign.
So just to be clear, anyone who opposed Zuma in the ANC is controlled by white people?
So, yes, correct.
Guys, you remember how Julius Malema actually rose to the ranks by demanding Jacob Zuma step down. You remember how passionate the economic freedom fighters were about Jacob Zuma stepping down? Is this man telling us that the EFF was captured by white people? Was the EFF captured by white people when the EFF demanded Jacob Zuma to step down? This man says that every single person in the country, man, who was opposed to Jacob Zuma, that was the product of white monopoly capital. It makes no sense. You have Julius Malema right in front of you. The same Julius Malema today that is saying, man, I would love Jacob Zuma to come to the EFF. The same Julius Malema, man, used to tell us how corrupt Jacob Zuma is. Julius Malema, man, dedicated his life in parliament exposing Jacob Zuma and his Gupta friends. Julius Malema, man, if it wasn't for Julius Malema, Jacob Zuma, man, would have probably ended his term as the president of the country. But because of the EFF and Julius Malema, Jacob Zuma did not even get to finish his term as the president of the country. So are you telling us that EFF was sponsored by white monopoly capital? Are you telling us that average South Africans, men who were pissed off at the cabinet of Jacob Zuma were the products of white monopoly capital? I mean, right now, you remember under Jacob Zuma, man, you used to have people like Fikile Mbalula as the Minister of Police. Don't you think that South Africans were actually pissed off at that? Don't you think South Africans were pissed off? Don't you think South Africans were pissed off at the fact that we had people like Melusi Gigaba as the Minister of Home Affairs? We had people like Lindiwe Sisulu as the Minister of Human Settlement. All of these people, men, are incompetent. All of these people are incompetent. So South Africans were pissed off at that. South Africans hated Jacob Zuma because of his bloated, incompetent cabinet. This is one of the reasons why South Africans hated Jacob Zuma, because of his bloated, incompetent cabinet. So everyone who didn't like Jacob Zuma, everyone is a product of white monopoly capital. It makes no sense.
And that's why the current ANC and most of them, let me state, hold on, Stephen. Let me give you some context here so you understand. It's not controlled by white people. There are white people here that love this country, but there are those few that want to control and ensure that the resources of this economy and this country only belong to them.
And they control everyone in the ANC now, that very small group of white people.
Well, of course. They're very powerful. They're very powerful. They control most of the NEC members.
I mean, guys, the man is not making sense. Even Stephen Grootes is laughing at him. Even Stephen Grootes is like, man, this man is starting to sound ridiculous at this point.
They control even this current president, and it's a fact, Stephen. So let's not make it a race issue. And I think let's not push it towards a race issue. I think we're looking at economic capital and control here of this country, of which it cannot be that it continues to be this way when people and the plight of the people is not being adhered to and taken care of.
Jacob Zuma was president for 9 years. Let me put it to you like this. The group of people who benefited the most from his time as president were members of the Gupta family.
No, Stephen, that is not true. In actual fact, there were a lot of white-owned businesses that benefited during President Zuma.
So he was helping white people too? Your argument can't go in 6 different directions at once.
I said to you, and the thing is, I think what you need to allow, and stop badgering, Stephen, is allow one to respond. What I'm saying to you is that this country was a whole lot more vibrant than it is right now in terms of its economy. Black people, there were more black millionaires under the Zuma so-called 9 wasted years. There was proper infrastructure. There's no proper infrastructure. There was a rail system that worked. This economy was vibrant. Load shedding did not have the kind of, in actual fact, load shedding came to an end. Now we're seeing elements of water shedding creeping in.
Is that not the consequence of Zuma's governance? It was during his time.
It is, man. Those are the consequences of Zuma's administration. Most of the problems that South Africa is facing today are the consequences of Zuma's administration. Right now, the Zuma camp is trying to dissociate Zuma with everything that he did when he was the president of the country. According to them, Jacob Zuma, man, ran the best country, man. And again, man, if you have to talk about the issue of the economy in terms of COVID impacted everyone else in the world. There are countries right now in the world who haven't recovered from COVID. And South Africa is one of those countries that have never recovered from COVID-19. So you cannot tell me that, because of the economy. No, Jacob Zuma did not deal with the pandemic. So why are we sitting here and comparing apples with oranges? We cannot compare apples with oranges. Jacob Zuma did not deal with COVID-19. Jacob Zuma was not faced with the decision to close the industry, to close the country down. Jacob Zuma was not faced with those decisions.
Time that this maintenance was not done. It was, and in
That
fact,
is
a
not
court,
true.
just hold on, and a court has made this finding that the power stations were run too hard during this time in the load shedding judgment late last year. It made a finding that, in fact, that was the case based on the evidence. It was during the Zuma time that the power stations were overrun, which led to the problems we have now. It was then that water infrastructure was neglected, that railways were neglected, all while President Zuma was president.
Stephen,
Yes.
I think we need to shy away from propaganda and look at what the reality is.
It is not propaganda. These are court records. It is not propaganda. These are court records.
The way the people are responding today is a clear indication that they are tired of this current-led Cyril Ramaphosa ANC. They're tired of this current state of this country.
I mean, like, South Africans are vulnerable, man. South Africans are vulnerable. You can't tell me just because a couple of people are following you, it doesn't mean that you are doing a wonderful job or you were a wonderful president. South Africans are gullible, man. I wouldn't even say that just because people have a bit of support, it means that they were. South Africans are gullible people. South Africans are gullible people, man. The same people, man, that they used to complain about Jacob Zuma are the same people that today are supporting Jacob Zuma simply because they hate President Ramaphosa. It doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean nothing.
That is a fact. During President Zuma's years, there was proper infrastructure. Things were working, load shedding, and you know very well that is the fact. We didn't have elements of water shedding creeping in. Our education system as it is, our state-owned entities, we had an SAA, by the way. We never had an ESCOM that is now for sale. Under the Cyril Ramaphosa-led government, everything that he touches is for sale and sold. Everything that President Zuma touched at the time was gold. That is the difference. And people, in this case, are tired of all the state assets being put up for sale. This is we cannot be continuously selling our crown jewels. Why can't we fix them? Why is it that we still have in this case?
Well, Zuma already gave them to the Guptas. Isn't that what he tried to do? You make claims against Ramaphosa. We have seen testimony under oath about how the Guptas benefited from Zuma's governance. We saw what happened at Transnet. It was so bad that in some cases, consultants actually paid the money back. That's because they realized what they had done. They realized the role of the Guptas. Are you really going to say the Guptas were not the people who benefited the most from Zuma's time in office? Are you really going to say that?
I'm going to say to you that again is just propaganda. And I think the focus here
it's
is
a finding by a commission from
Gupta,
testimony under oath that we all saw.
Man, everything these people do not like, it is propaganda. Everything these people do not like, it is propaganda. Whether it is court records, whether it's testimony under oath, if it goes against Jacob Zuma, it is propaganda. This is the reason why Jacob Zuma goes around telling people that he was thrown to jail without a trial. Jacob Zuma is not telling the people that I was thrown in jail because I did not comply with the courts. They are not telling the people that. The supporters of Jacob Zuma today, they believe that Jacob Zuma was thrown to jail without a trial. Everything is propaganda to these people, man. Everything that goes against the Jacob Zuma camp, it has to do with propaganda.
No, but I mean, we know what was behind most of these commissions that were set up. These, quite honestly...
Man, this guy is the biggest conspiracy theorist ever, man. This guy is the biggest conspiracy theorist ever.
These were commissions that were set up just to benefit a certain narrative.
And who set them up?
And
It was Zuma.
So the fact of the matter here is the following.
Zuma is the one who set up those commissions that you are talking about. Even the State Capture Commission, man.
I'm saying to you that there are a lot of black and white owned companies that flourished under President Zuma, and that is a fact. So this narrative of saying that President Zuma's Guptas, as they always refer to them, that's not true.
Well, he said they were his friends. He said that.
But again, the Guptas, by the way, let me state, don't forget, they worked closely with President Mandela. They worked closely with President Mbeki.
I don't think they worked closely with Mandela at all. They knew President Mbeki. That's true. I don't think they worked. I don't think there's any evidence that they worked closely with Mandela.
You don't think, but they did.
So bring us the evidence if the Guptas really worked with Nelson Mandela. What is the project? What kind of project? Like, how did the Guptas work with Nelson Mandela? You can't just throw it out there just because you saw one picture with Nelson Mandela standing next to Jacob Zuma's boss, Atul Gupta. You can't tell me just because you saw one picture of the Guptas standing next to Nelson Mandela. How did they work with Nelson Mandela?
So the reality is, why is it that under President Zuma that it must be an issue that they worked with President Zuma?
All right, and
This is a free democracy, an open country, and this country ought to be vibrant. The biggest problem is that right now, let's stop focusing on the past. We should be focusing on right now. People want change.
Yeah, he's telling you that you must forget everything about Jacob Zuma. You must forget everything that took place under Jacob Zuma's administration. We must just focus on Ramaphosa's administration. Do not hold Jacob Zuma's administration accountable for anything. I mean, the man literally said the court records are propaganda. The man literally said the oath and the testimonies under oath are propaganda. This is what he's telling us. Don't talk about Jacob Zuma administration. Do not try to hold us accountable for what we have done under Jacob Zuma administration. Let's focus on Ramaphosa administration.
Change. People are hungry. We're busy talking about the Guptas, which is a false narrative. Let's leave that. Let's focus on the state of the country right now. When you leave, Stephen, you're going to be going home to a home that's got a generator. People don't have generators. People's companies are suffering. Black professionals are being sidelined. That is what's happening under the President Cyril Ramaphosa-led ANC government.
All right. And Lamola, I'm sure you and I can argue about the track record, and I'm sure the country can argue about the track record of President Zuma for a long time. You say that Umkhonto weSizwe, the political party that you now represent, is the sort of real MK that went underground to fight apartheid from the 1960s onwards. Zuma was due to visit the graves of two Umkhonto weSizwe fighters this week, and the families of both Collins Chabane and Peter Dambuza Malada objected to him going to those graves. If this was a true political party that was true to their legacies, why would the families have this objection?
You're saying the true MK. We're not a paramilitary wing, Stephen. And I'm saying I can see a use of words there. I think what's important to understand is that we said we're a political party, number one. Number two, we're being hosted by virtue of, as you've seen, a resounding response by citizens in this country that want to see change and that want to see President Zuma speak to them. In this case, what then happened also with Limpopo, the organizers, as is the case with all events that we visit, they prepare a program and we have to approve that program. And upon approving that program, we would then action it accordingly. One of the elements of approving that program was to engage as per their proposal. By the way, it's not our initiative to go and visit the grave sites. It's not President Zuma's initiative. We were requested in this case to...
So you're saying Zuma's still part of the ANC and MK?
So the families objected. They were very angry.
The man is not answering the question. Why did the families of Colin Chabane say, Jacob Zuma, you must not even come near the grave of Colin Chabane? Jacob Zuma wanted to go to the grave sites of Colin Chabane. They wanted to campaign standing next to the grave sites of Colin Chabane. I think the other family that said Jacob Zuma must stop abusing their family name, it is the family of Chris Hani. The reason why these families are objecting, the reasons why these families are rejecting Jacob Zuma is because these families understand that this MK, it is a fake MK. They understand that their loved ones were not part of this Mickey Mouse fake MK. This is the reason why Jacob Zuma was rejected by these families. Jacob Zuma wanted to stand next to the grave of Chris Hani. Jacob Zuma wanted to stand next to the grave of Colin Chabane. Because this MK thing of theirs, it cannot find credibility if these people cannot stand next to the grave of the MK, the real MK soldiers. It is a fake MK. This is why the families rejected Jacob Zuma. This is why. This is why. You are tiptoeing around the answer. This is why. I mean, Jacob Zuma threw the tantrums after the family of Colin Chabane told him that, man, you need to stay there. You need to stay there. You cannot come here. Jacob Zuma started throwing the tantrums and not going to the Limpopo. He started cancelling the trips. Even the Chris Hani's widow man came out and said, Jacob Zuma needs to stop abusing our family name. You can campaign all you want. You can say whatever that you want to say, but do not talk about Chris Hani because Chris Hani was not part of this fake MK. Colin Chabane was not part of this fake MK. This is the reason why the families of the real MK are rejecting this fake MK.
They were furious at the idea. I mean, the language from the Jabane Foundation was unbelievable. Was incredibly furious. I mean, is it really the right thing to use people's graves in political campaigning? And clearly, the families are very unhappy.
No.
Of course, because Jacob Zuma, for some reason, I hate that I'm saying this again. For some reason, Jacob Zuma believes that this MK of his, it is a real MK. Everyone in the country understands that this MK of Jacob Zuma, it is a fake MK. Everyone understands that. But for some reason, Jacob Zuma thinks this is a real MK. This is why Jacob Zuma has the guts to go to the family of Colin Chabane and asking them to campaign standing next to the grave of Colin Chabane. Because Jacob Zuma understands that if we are going to call ourselves MK, there is no way we're going to be able to call ourselves MK if we cannot stand next to the graves of the MK fallen soldiers. If we cannot stand next to the grave of Colin Chabane, there is no way we're going to call ourselves the real MK. If we cannot stand next to the grave of Chris Hani, we cannot call ourselves the Liberation Movement. Like Jacob Zuma, for some reason, believes this is the real MK. This is not the real MK. This is not the real MK. And this is why the families of these people, man, were so furious at Jacob Zuma. This is why the families of these people, they wanted nothing to do with Jacob Zuma. Because Jacob Zuma wants to grandstand using their grave of their loved ones. They cannot stand the thought of someone campaigning, grandstanding, standing next to the graves of their loved ones.
Oh, Stephen, I think what you don't know is that President Zuma enjoys a very good relationship with the Chabane family. They've visited President Zuma before. And what I need to then state is the following, and I think I was finishing off until I could hear, I think there was someone asking you a question or another voice in the background. That's what actually stopped me. What's important here is that when we said that there's an approval process, President Zuma at that point, as a traditionalist, would never just show up at Comrade Collins Chabane's gravesite without having consulted his family. There's no ways. President Zuma is a traditional man, and we understand that there's customs and traditions that ought to be followed even before you just show up at a gravesite. President Zuma is a very respectful man, and he would never do anything of that nature. It's just unfortunate that there was a poster that was circulating and that purported to create an impression as though President Zuma, had taken a decision, of ill discipline to just go and disrespect a family by visiting a gravesite without having engaged them for their consent. That is not true.
Okay, so it was a mistake.
There was no such thing as a mistake. It's not true.
Okay, so someone just said...
President Zuma did.
So what Colin Chabane's family said, it is propaganda. I think it is propaganda, guys. Does this qualify to be a propaganda?
President Zuma did not approve, neither did he engage the family. So how can it be a mistake? I just mentioned to you that President Zuma, as a traditionalist, could never make a mistake such as that. So it cannot be a mistake.
Okay, and Ntlamulo, so I just want to understand, you're going into the elections, you say that you have strong support. It seems to all revolve, from what I can see, around Jacob Zuma. Your stated aim is to remove the ANC from power, and Jacob Zuma remains a member of the ANC.
Well, that decision can be taken at the right time. The people will make that decision. And President Zuma will be consulted by the people. And that's what President Zuma has also been doing. He's been consulting with all these events that we've been having, all the rallies. And the people are saying clearly that they want him to lead. So that decision is not a decision that we can take right now, that there's a process. And if President Zuma then agrees, he will take up the role of leading accordingly.
Yes, but my question still stands. Your political party is aimed at removing the ANC from power. Your campaigner-in-chief, or the most famous person who belongs to your party, is Jacob Zuma, and he's still a member of the ANC, the party you want to remove from power.
Stephen, I can tell you the following. There's going to be a lot of members of the ANC that are going to vote for MK. You watch.
Okay.
You are not answering the question, man. You're not answering the question.
You still haven't answered my question, you want to say
I'm answering your question.
You are campaigning against the ANC. Jacob Zuma's campaigning against the ANC while remaining a member of the ANC.
This is the reason why we are saying this Umkhonto we Sizwe thing will go into coalition with African National Congress. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. How can Jacob Zuma want to dethrone the African National Congress when he's still the member of the African National Congress? It makes no sense. MK wants to go into coalition with the African National Congress. In fact, MK is going to give African National Congress their votes after 2024 elections. And this is what is going to happen because it makes no sense. You can hear even this guy, man, when he really thinks about it, like it really rings to him like it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
What's wrong with that? I'm not a member of the ANC. I'm not a member of the ANC.
How can anyone believe someone when to say that you're serious when you say we're campaigning against a party but we belong to it at the same time? You can't support Orlando Pirates and Kaiser Chiefs at the same time. You don't have enough shirts to wear.
Stephen, you can be a Bafana supporter and be a Kaiser Chiefs fan.
Yeah, not when they're playing against each other.
No, I'm saying to you, at the end of the day, what's most important for you to note, number one, is I'm not a member of the NK.
I'm not asking about you. I'm asking about Jacob Zuma.
Number one. Number two, well, Jacob Zuma is one of us, and we are one of him.
And one of the ANC.
And President Zuma, by the way, we must refer to him as President Zuma. President Zuma is going to campaign from Mkhonto weSizwe Party, and there's nothing stopping him from not campaigning from Mkhonto weSizwe Party. It is his right.
It's done.
And Tlamula and Lela, thank you very much indeed. I'm sure it won't be the last time you and I engage. The spokesperson for the Mkhonto weSizwe political party.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Even Tlamula can say that. This whole thing makes no sense. How can Jacob Zuma campaign against the African National Congress when he's still the member of the African National Congress? How is it possible? How is it possible? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. He says, no, I'm not the member of the ANC. Man, the question is not about you or whether you are the member of the African National Congress. The question is about Jacob Zuma. How is it possible that Jacob Zuma is campaigning against the African National Congress and he is still the member of the African National Congress? Jacob Zuma is one of us and we are one of him. Guys, please tell me what you think on the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button. And the most important part, subscribe. My name is Thomas Mobile. So I will see you next time. Bye-bye.